Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I am so excited to be back sitting down with you guys. I took a couple of weeks off simply because I have been out of town a lot recently and have not had time at all to sit down and put together an episode or record it or edit it or any of that. So I decided just to take a little bit of a break, but I'm very excited to be jumping back into it today. So while I've been gone, there have been many stories that have come and gone, but the one that has remained a story over the last couple of weeks is Harrison Butker. You know, the man who had the audacity to be a Catholic at a Catholic school giving a Catholic speech. That one. So since it's still very much a relevant news story, we are going to talk about it today. Why? Why is it still a news story? It's been 3 weeks. Let's get into that. But before we do, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Give this video a thumbs up. I put a lot of work and effort into these videos for you guys to put out every single Monday. So make sure that you are following along. All of my other social medias are in the description down below. So make sure you go and check those out as well. I appreciate every single one of you. And with that, my name is Noelle. This is Just Say No. Let's get into it. So I sincerely cannot believe that this is still something that is being discussed. I mean, the anger surrounding this speech is something to behold. And if you somehow do not know what we are discussing here today, that would be the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, Harrison Butker, who gave a commencement speech at a Catholic college 3 weeks ago. And the anger that this speech ignited in our nation is living on. It lives on today. Now, if you were to just read the headlines about this story, you would get the impression that Harrison Butker walked on that stage, said that women are the property of their husbands, have no place in polite society, and should simply not breathe outside of the home. And that's just not what happened at all. And so what I want to do today is go through his actual speech, because I've seen a lot of people dissecting the part of the speech that is going viral, but I haven't seen anyone talking about the actual speech in its entirety. So we're going to do that. That's what we're going to do. And I have the transcript of it linked in the description below if you want to follow along. Okay, so he opens the speech by talking about how as a nation, we have gone through a lot over the last couple of years. He says, quote, "As a group, you witnessed firsthand how bad leaders who don't stay in their lane can have a negative impact on society. It is through this lens that I want to take stock of how we got to where we are and where we want to go as citizens, and yes, as Catholics." So that quite clearly sets the tone for the speech, that it's going to be from a Catholic perspective. And yet, the blue-haired goofballs on Twitter are still going berserk, even though he plainly says, "I'm going to talk about Catholic values." They are still shocked that he continues on to talk about Catholic values. It's crazy. It is truly, I say it a lot. Is it surprising? No. It's just disappointing. Now, the headlines, what they don't mention is the 17 whole other minutes of this speech in which he talks about Catholic values and the nation and men and women. He talks about a lot in this speech, but of course they just Media Matters style clipped that one portion, and we're going to get to it. And we're going to talk about that, but I want to talk about everything else as well. I want it to be in its full context here. So in a very Jordan Peterson-esque manner, he discusses how as Catholics, they can't even start to look at the state of the world or the nation and start trying to change it or fix it before they get their own house in order. He discusses how bishops and priests are failing inside of the church. He goes very, very in depth about the history of Catholicism, not necessarily the history, but he talks about saints and different roles that they've played historically. And it's not something that I'm very well versed in. So again, I have the transcript linked down below if you want to read this particular part, but this is the majority of his speech. Like this topic, the history of Catholicism and its role in the roles of priests and bishops in the church, is the core of this speech. It's the majority of this speech. But then we get to the part where everyone's losing their mind, where he says that the majority of women are going to be most fulfilled when they become wives and mothers, which key word there. He says the majority, the most, which is statistically true. This is just statistically, biologically true that women and men both find the most fulfillment once they fill that role in their lives as parents and as a family unit of their own. This is just true. But again, context is key. He's speaking to a Catholic school. So it's going to be even more likely that this group of Catholic women are going to resonate with this message. He also didn't say that anyone had to do this. All he said was that most men and women are going to find the highest levels of joy when they go down this path in life. That's all he said. And another very common headline that's going around right now is that he said that his wife's life only began when she married him and had his children. And while he did say that, he prefaced it by saying that she would be the first one to tell you this, meaning this is probably a conversation that they've had. This is probably something that she has told him, and he is reiterating something that she has communicated to him. And frankly, I think that any mother would have the same sentiment, that their life truly started when they had their children. Because the bottom line is that the life you had before kids is nothing compared to what your life becomes once you have children. And obviously, I hate that it even has to be said, that does not mean you have to have children. It just means that you aren't going to know that level of deep love. You're not going to know that level of deep, unconditional love if you don't have children. There's nothing that trumps that. There is nothing that compares to that. I'm so sorry that your fur baby is not the same. And look, this is coming from somebody who has pets. I love my cats. If you know me, you know how much I love my cats. They are my babies. I love them so much. But I also know that once I have children, it's obviously not going to be the same. And it is so insane that has to be said. It is so insane that is something that's like going to probably offend somebody, that the love that you have for your actual children is going to be leaps and bounds deeper than the love you have for your pet. What is wrong with our society? And also, nobody discusses the fact that in this same section, he credits every ounce of his success to his wife. He blatantly says that he would not be the man he is, he would not be where he is if it were not for his wife. But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that he's saying, hey, I've done incredible things. Wouldn't have been able to do a single one of them without this woman standing next to me here. They just want to talk about the fact that he acknowledged the fact that women are going to be much happier when they have children. This whole episode is this is definitely one of those episodes where it's just like speechless. It truly leaves you speechless. So then following that, I have a question for everyone who's making those kinds of comments of, well, I, don't agree with everything that he said in this speech. And I'm specifically looking at the Kelsey brothers, and I'm specifically looking at Pat Mahomes, and I'm specifically looking at the Chiefs in general, because they put out these milquetoast statements of like, I know Harrison, he's a really good guy, but we don't agree with what he said in his speech, but he's a really good guy. And it was very roundabout. Well, do you also not agree with the part immediately following the part where he speaks to the women, where he speaks directly to the men, telling them to step up and be good men and be strong leaders and be good fathers for their families, because absentee fathers is the number one problem in our country? Do you also disagree with that? Or are we hyperfixating on this one specific part of this speech just to stir the pot? I'm just wondering, because the bottom line is he didn't say anything wrong in this speech. He speaks to the men in that room and the women in that room with the exact same message, which is step up, be a parent, raise good children, and you will be fulfilled in this life. He gives the exact same message to the men in that room as he gives to the women. And yet, we are only focusing on what he said to the women. And then after that, he goes back to talking about the church. So let's summarize. He opens by talking about the church and our nation's failings. He then continues on to discuss the importance of the church and its role in society. He then addresses women with the message of family. He then addresses men with the message of family, and then he closes it all out by talking about the church once more, because he's at a Catholic college. He's at a CATHOLIC college, in case you needed it spelled out for you. Not everything is for you. He ends his speech with this, quote, "I know that my message today has been a little less fluff than what is expected for these speeches, but I believe that this audience and this venue is the best place to speak openly and honestly about who we are and where we all want to go, which is heaven." Holy cannolis, it's almost, oh my God, you guys, it's almost as if he's speaking to a bunch of religious people about religious values in a religious setting. Freaking crazy. That's insane. That is insane. Wow. But because for 3 minutes out of a 20-minute speech, he said some things that upset the girl bosses of the world, that's all we hear about. And I think that people don't know or understand that a public speaking skill is to know your audience. And he very obviously knew his audience. Very obviously. This speech was so perfectly catered to his audience. You can't address the entire world. You're never going to please everyone. He wasn't trying to. He was speaking to a very specific group of people. But the bimbos on TikTok think everything is about them. It reminds me of, there was this thing a while back, and it was like the bean soup video. And essentially what had happened was some woman uploaded a video of a recipe for bean soup. And someone commented and said, "I don't like beans," or "I'm allergic to beans," or something. And they're like, "What about me?" Scroll, go to the next one. Don't make bean soup. If you're allergic to beans, don't make bean soup. If you're not Catholic, stop listening to Catholic messages. Oh my God. Not everything is about you. Not everything is for you. Not everything is about you. Not everything needs to make you happy. The world isn't rainbows and butterflies. And sometimes the truth sucks. Sometimes the truth hurts your feelings, but it is what it is, baby. And I think it would be one thing if, like, people were just pissed off about this, because people are always upset on the internet, whatever. But someone made a petition on change.org that has over 20,000 signatures on it to get Harrison Buckner kicked off of the Chiefs. I'm so sorry. Are you so insecure in your belief that women are girl bosses that somebody is simply espousing a different point of view threatens you so terribly to your core that you have to insist that they lose their job? That doesn't feel very girl boss to me. That doesn't feel very "I'm tough" to me. That feels like a bitch move. Frankly, baby, you're acting like a bitch. So that is what that is. And before we close out, I think it's also worth mentioning that he gave an incredibly similar commencement speech last year. Literally last year, he gave a very similar speech, but that one didn't hit the algorithm on TikTok, so we never heard about it. And we've done episodes on media manipulation before, but we could do a whole nother one just about how when you narrow in on something and it gets that media attention and it gets blown out of proportion into something like what we're seeing with this, it's manipulation. That's it. It's manipulation. And this whole story is absolutely insane. When you look at the speech in its entirety, when you consider the audience that he is speaking to, this man did nothing wrong. Free my man Harrison. He did not a thing wrong. But with that, we are going to close out today, guys. I'm pretty sure this is probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode, but as I said, we are just starting to get back into the swing of things. I've been gone for a couple of weeks. So if you have made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I will chat with you all next Monday.